That will be the last time that happens, I'm sure. That will be the last time that happens, I hope. Okay. Welcome to you all on this lovely autumn day, the turning of the seasons, to the celebration of the life of Lotus Simon Miller. And we have much to celebrate. If you had the privilege of knowing Lotus during her active life, or if you have read her obituary, which is on the back of this program, then you already have an idea of what a remarkable woman we are remembering today. It is the custom of this fellowship to light the chalice to note important occasions in the life of our group. So today, I light the chalice in memory of Lotus, a beloved honorary life member of this congregation. Our service today features 3 poems by Mary Oliver. This seems particularly appropriate because Mary Oliver was a Unitarian Universalist poet who, like Lotus, spent her life observing and immersed in the wonders of nature. The first of these poems is When Death Comes. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut. When death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I went to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness. And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea. And I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular. And each name, a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does towards silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. Now, would you please stand if you like and are able, and join us in singing the hymn, number 327. You will recognize there we go. You will recognize the tune. be seated. Lotus's sons, Doug and Alan, chose that hymn, and I'm sure we can all agree it was very appropriate for her. Each of Lotus's 4 grandchildren have made a personal contribution to this service to remember their grandmother. The youngest, Dorothy, made a picture, which you will see today in the fireside room. And we are happy to have the eldest, Eliana, here with us today to share her memories of her grandma.
Hi. There are so many people here. When I was younger, I'm sure you all know how much my father really loved his mother. And when she was getting older, he wanted her to come live with us in California. But she said, no, absolutely not. I have so many friends and so many people that I love here in Iowa. And so she stayed, and she was very, very happy. I admired Grandmother Lotus so much. When I was a child, she was just awe-inspiring because she was so cool. That's a really overused word, but she knew everything about everything. She knew the names of all the plants. She knew how long to water them. She knew how to take care of everything and make it grow. I can't overstate just how crazy that was to, watch her plant something and watch it grow and watch it be beautiful. She was really, really full of life, and she was happy and so steady as a person. At the beginning there, that Mary Oliver poem about not wanting to feel like you just visited, part of why I admired her so much is she really did live as full of a life as a person possibly can, I think. I think she did exactly what she wanted to do with herself and with the world, and that's really something special. The reason why my father isn't up here today is because he loved her too much to be able to get up here and talk without crying. So I'm here for him. But she was a really good mom, and he has such deep respect and such deep love for her. And that's something really, really worth having. I know that watching her go through her own life has been so important for my father's own, and he's going to really, really miss her. We all are. I have a message from my siblings, which is that we really love you, Grandmother Lotus, and we're going to miss you a lot.
Though he would have preferred to be here in person to share this with you, Lotus's grandson, Bryce, has shared a song in her memory via the magic of internet technology. So this is Bryce.
Bist du bei mir, geh ich mit Freuden zum Sterben und zu meiner Ruhe, zum Sterben und zu meiner Ruhe. Bist du bei mir, geh ich mit Freuden zum Sterben und zu meiner Ruhe, zum Sterben und zu meiner Ruhe. Bist du bei mir, geh ich mit Freuden zum Sterben und zu meiner Ruhe, zum Sterben und zu meiner Ruhe. Ach, wie wär nu, war so mein Ende. Es trügt in deine schönen Hände mir die getreuen Augen zu. Ach, wie wär nu, war so mein Ende. Es trügt in deine schönen Hände mir die getreuen Augen zu. Bist du bei mir, geh ich mit Freuden zum Sterben und zu meiner Ruhe, zum Sterben und zu meiner Ruhe.
If you have looked at the pictures on the table in the fireside room, you will see one picture of Bryce at about 6 years old, looking very angelic in bed. He is now 6 feet tall, more. You would not recognize him. When I first sat down with Lotus's sons, Doug and Alan, to talk about what should be included in this short service that would attempt to sum up a life of 97 years, I asked them to think of 3 words that they might use to describe their mother. Of course, I expected things like kind, patient, naturalist, descriptors like that. Instead, Doug spoke up almost at once and said the 3 words he most associated with Lotus were, "Well, hello there." Spoken in a calm, gentle voice to any creature, especially young creatures, including humans, so as not to frighten them. Her sons remember these words spoken often, to an insect in the meadow, to an animal at the zoo, to a duckling placed in her hands. Her sons agreed that she never said anything bad about anything or anyone, even when they deserved it. Doug remembered one time when she had backed into another car without damaging it, and although his teenage self would have loved to punch the man who was demanding damages, who was probably not the owner of the car either, Lotus gave the man a small amount of money and some mollifying words. Alan mentioned the word pleasant, but then he added, "Now that is not quite right." She was humble, but supportive and inviting. Neither parent dictated beliefs, but gave the impression that many issues of relationship were a matter of value judgments and choice. They would give knowledge information and a range of options that encouraged the listener to come to their own conclusions. Alan recalls that when he misbehaved, his mother would be obviously upset, and that would make him feel badly enough to change his behavior. She didn't have to impose any punishment. Lotus followed that pattern with the many religious education classes she taught here at the fellowship. One of my daughters tells the tale of her tying a knot in a dandelion stem while on a Sunday morning field trip and showing it to Lotus as an example of an oddly developed plant. Instead of berating the child for her obvious deception, Lotus said mildly, "I think some person helped it to do that." And my daughter never forgot that gentle lesson. Doug mentioned that his earliest memories of his mother were of her working in the kitchen. He said that people seldom gave her credit for her intelligence and scholarship because of the age in which she grew up. When she and Wilmer married, he had already finished his PhD, And so, as was common at the time, she left her studies and went with him to California to be a housewife and mother. No doubt, if their story were taking place today, they would both be researchers and professors in an academic setting. Her sons remarked that their mother inherited their mother's personality, but that her intellectual pursuits resulted from her father's guidance. And I must say, speaking of pictures out in the fireside room, there is one of her father holding a lotus up in the air at the age of 2 years old, standing on his hand, that I think is very indicative of what we're talking about here. Leo Simon had very eclectic interests, and he belonged to 20 different clubs, including those with nature emphases of all kinds. Lotus grew up cultivating the same wide variety of interests that she followed into adulthood, and that she encouraged others to pursue as well. Alan and Doug remember field trips with her clad in jeans and carrying a denim pack, lying flat on her stomach with her geologist's pick, working on excavating a fossil. Not an activity shared by many women of her generation. Her method of introducing her sons to the natural world was through hands-on activities, lots of bird watching trips, Audubon meetings, geology hikes and fossil hunts, lectures on campus and trips to campus buildings to learn from exhibits there. Both of them remembered that when they grew to the age where they could choose whether or not they were going to attend lectures or other activities, she might cajole or entice them, but never laid on guilt trips or objected when they declined an opportunity. Another characteristic that she inherited, or perhaps learned from her father, was the meticulous gathering of data from field trips, family vacations, and the like. She would write down identifying data from maps and photos, including specific mileage and geographic positions, the sort of information we get effortlessly from GPS these days. Modeling that attention to detail and seeking out the next fact has stood her offspring in good stead. Both Doug and Alan inherited her investigative curiosity and the ability to look at things from different angles. Doug cited a recent incident in which a backyard plant anomaly led him to an internet search that identified a rare Iowa native plant, and then the origins of its common name, and then its uses. He says that he knows his mother would have been proud of his effort to go beyond just identifying what the species was. On the flip side, Lotus's broad interests and curiosity led her to be an inveterate article clipper. She saved columns from newspapers and magazines that are now an unwanted legacy for her boys to dispose of. Lotus did not just enjoy the natural world, she worked hard to preserve it. She became a leader in the local Audubon Society. She worked hard to prevent the Ledges State Park from being flooded by the Army Corps of Engineers. And she was a prime force behind preservation of the prairie remnant that is located at the Ames High School. As if her many interests in the natural world were not enough, Lotus also enjoyed many creative activities. Chinese cooking, calligraphy, and watercolor painting are some of the things her sons remember. Lotus suffered a stroke a couple of decades ago that hampered her speech, and advancing dementia increasingly limited her ability to communicate. But she never lost her kind and gentle attitude toward others. And I imagine that we can feel that presence with us here today. Lotus's third grandchild, Kawith, has also shared some music for her grandmother. This is "Oh Danny Boy" performed by a treble quartet at Kayworth's high school music concert. And Kayworth is on the left in this video.
The summer's gone, and all the roses falling. It's you, what I must find. Please come me back when summer's in the meadow. When the valley's hushed and white with snow, and everything sunshine will shine. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so. But when you come and all the flowers are dying, if I am dead, as dead I well may be, you come and find the place where I am lying, and hear and say, and I'll be there for you. And I shall hear the soft tread above me, and all my breath warmer, sweeter be. For you will bend and tell me that you love me, and I shall sleep in peace until you come to
And now we have time for those of you who remember Lotus to share special memories that you may have. I'm going to ask you to please come to the microphone, the floor microphone. And I will begin with a couple of memories from people who were not able to be with us today. First is Laura Cook, a longtime member of this congregation, who said that she remembers Lotus as being such a gracious and interesting person. And her daughter, Ann Richards, shared, I have beautiful memories of Lotus, of her bird-filled house, a living being in itself, her sensitive voice, and how selflessly she gave of her time and care. Another great Unitarian from my very fortunate youth. And then Mark Wiederlechner, who is currently in New Mexico, I believe, said, I wish I could be with you today to celebrate the life of Lotus Miller. She was my friend for many years. Lotus and Wilmer were among the first people that my late wife, Sherry, and I got to know when we arrived in Ames in 1983. At the time, Lotus was a central figure in environmental activism here in central Iowa, fighting local dam projects and helping preserve the Ames High Prairie. She was a founding member of the Big Blue Stem Audubon Society and served as one of its first presidents. She helped organize and participated in many field trips for people to experience nature firsthand, whether for the Faculty Women's Club, the Audubon, or local youth groups. When she was a graduate student at the University of Wisconsin, she attended Aldo Leopold's final course shortly before his untimely passing. So it was quite fitting that Lotus was involved with the Leopold Centennial celebration that took place in Ames in 1986, giving her the opportunity to interact with illustrious members of the Leopold family and Leopold scholars. Her love of birds went beyond wild birds. She helped Wilmer maintain an extensive aviary, where over the years, Wilmer became an authority on the genetics of doves and zebra finches. When Wilmer and Lotus left for a long sabbatical to Brazil in the 1990s, Sherry and I adopted a pair of their finches and enjoyed their sounds and antics and those of their offspring for many years. Lotus was deeply committed to our natural world. She was also deeply curious about it. You could tell by the quality of her questions after programs or during the course of a field trip. Alongside her bright, critical mind, she was very approachable and welcoming with a gentle smile and good humor. Lotus did not seek the limelight, but accomplished a great deal through perseverance and her extensive network of friends. A life well worth sharing and celebrating. Fritz?
I'm Fritz Franzen, and I've known Lotus for almost as long as I've lived in Ames. And I want to describe her impact. We've heard much about her influence, but I want to talk about her influence on me and my life. And her influence was of a very gentle and subtle characteristic of Lotus and her personality. But she provided a backdrop, along with several others in the fellowship, but a backdrop of substantial, clear, rational, factual thinking about nature, biology, bioethics, and the environment. My field is physical chemistry, and I had no concept of the depth of understanding of both biological science and bioethics until I joined the fellowship. And that understanding was enhanced by a number of people here. This is a very strong place, I think, for bioethics in Ames, Iowa. But she was certainly a leading figure in my education and the education of my children. And I honor her life at this time. And I thank her for all that she provided. Thank you.
I didn't think we were going to be here, so I wrote this down. But we remember Lotus as a loving and kind person throughout our many years at the Unitarian Fellowship. Her two sons, Alan and Doug, remain dear to us as we remember them growing up with our children here. We have missed Wilmer since his passing some years ago. Lotus's many years devoted to the fellowship and sharing her love and generosity with all of us will long be remembered. This is from Kay and Roger Berger.
Jenny Huntington. Lotus came up to me one time and said, "Your uncle did some very interesting research." And my maiden name was a Welsh name, impossible to spell or say. And Lotus knew about this. And so, of course, I became interested in her. And it wasn't long before she, in Wilmer, donated birds to the auction. And all kinds of people ended up with birds because they didn't have enough room for them in their house. They'd built the atrium, and these birds were very prolific. And so everybody was having a lot of finches. And Lotus also, of course, as people have mentioned, loved plants. And she would also donate a spring wildflower walk. And that was a wonderful experience, except if you asked Lotus what a given flower was, she could only tell you the Latin name of it, because that's what her father had taught her, and she thought that would do, but you had no way of notifying anybody else what you had seen. Our first principle in the Unitarian Universalist religion is respecting the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Well, Lotus kind of expanded this to respecting the inherent worth and dignity of everything. And one time, after I'd known her a little bit, she gave me a stack of these things. And I thought, what will I ever do with those? They're these silicone cupcake holders, and we had a whole stack of them, and I thought, why does Lotus have these? And of course she had a lot of things, but I thought she was just hoping that the grandkids would come and someday she could make cupcakes with them with these different colored cupcake holders. So I've saved them, and actually I use them every single day. And not for cupcakes. Lotus also gave me something else. We were both attending a health for elder people lecture at the hospital, and I went up to say hello to her afterwards, and she couldn't respond to me. And I said, "Lotus, do you think you're having a little stroke?" And she said, "Yes," so she knew what was happening. And of course, there we were in the hospital. So Selden Spencer was on hand to save her. And my gift was that she allowed me to save her along with all the other things that she saved in her life.
I'm Herb Kloss. And Lotus and I shared a number of things. One was that we both had advanced degrees in zoology, and also a love of Aldo Leopold and his family, and the place up in Baraboo, which we used to go to. But when I got here in '75, her work on the preserving the Ames High Prairie had just, I guess, finished. A group of botanists and her were able to set it aside and had the Nature Conservancy sign a long-time lease for the management of that prairie. So when I retired in 1999, I volunteered with the Nature Conservancy to help manage it. And one of the things that we had a problem with was invasives, invasive shrub called a buckthorn. And I organized a group every Saturday morning, not every Saturday morning, Saturday mornings in the spring, usually in March, and we would go there and cut buckthorn and burn brush piles. And one day, one of the brush piles got away, and the fire swept over a little remnant prairie that was on the west side. And on the west side, there was a large green space of mowed grass that was between that and the University Village. Well, one of our group who was helping out with the brush pile burning ran over to one of the apartments in the village and called the fire department. Well, by the time the fire department got there, the fire had burnt itself out. And they just laughed and said, well, you didn't need to call us, but anyway, following Monday, I had a visit from the Nature Conservancy steward who had control of and responsibility for the Ames High Prairie and most of the prairies and woodlands that the Nature Conservancy had over in eastern Iowa. Well, she gave me a long treatise about that I did not take enough responsibility for this and that I was no longer allowed to work on the prairie. And I asked her why, and she said, well, the lawyers in Washington with the Nature Conservancy feel that you no longer are capable. And I said, well, the lawyers are not ecologists, and they are not knowledgeable about fire. I said, so you can have it. And so I reluctantly gave up my responsibility for that. But Mike Todd, who is a science teacher at Ames High and is a member of the fellowship, has now taken over, and that prairie has benefited greatly from Mike's work. And so I just wanted to share that with you, that the Nature Conservancy is run by a bunch of lawyers, and I greatly feel for them. I'm a member of the Nature Conservancy and have been for many, many years, but sometimes they do not use good ecological information. Anyway, Lotus and I were also members of the American Ornithologists Union, and I noticed on the table out there a copy of the Auk, which was the journal of the American Ornithologists Union since 1898, I think. And they changed the name of that recently, I heard. I hope that's not true, but a bunch of modern ornithologists who believe more in statistics than they do in nature have taken over.
My name is Peggy Faden, and I got acquainted with Lotus through nature study of the then Faculty Women's Club. And so, as has been pointed out, she was a very welcoming and friendly person. And I have a couple plants in my yard that I got from the Miller backyard. And of course, I also remember the fringed white doves that used to reside in the Botanical Center in Des Moines before they eliminated all extra birds there, I guess. At any rate, in 1991, David and I were going out to Oregon, Portland, Oregon, for an AAUW National Convention, and I told Lotus, I knew she was from Oregon, that I would be renting a car and I'd be driving partway down the Oregon coast. So she knew about some obscure swamp plant in some very small park along the road, and I am happy to say that I actually found it and looked at the plant. And I don't think that Kevin Stadler is here today, but I wanted to mention the wonderful support that he gave Lotus in her long and difficult recovery from her stroke, and trying to encourage her to identify and speak words. He created a tree with the different parts on it, and I happened to be in the hospital visiting one time when he was, saw the Stadler tree. Anyway, so I have fond
memories of Lotus.
Well, my husband and I knew Lotus since we started coming to the fellowship, which, is about 30 odd years. But I didn't get to know her well till we started giving her rides to the fellowship. And we used to sort of share it with other people, but it got to the point where, she was calling around, or her carer was calling around. And I said to Stan, we might as well do it every week. We can go every week and it'll get us up and get us to church. We'll do it every week. So we did. And, till she didn't come anymore at all. And I'm pretty sure towards the end, she hadn't a clue who I was. but she was always so welcoming and looked so pleased to see me and so trusting and had such a beautiful smile. And she always, somehow, when we were driving along, my husband has to make what I think are, forgive me, Stan, not very good jokes. But she always knew he was joking somehow, and she would laugh, and it sounded like genuine laughter, laugh at his jokes much, and that would make me laugh, just because, it's sort of infectious. So I have very fond memories of Lotus, and a lovely smile, absolutely lovely smile.
Oh, well, pick me up. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Connie Clark, and I had the privilege of being Lotus's lady-in-waiting for over 10 years, probably at home. And then when she went on into Heartwood, I was able to help serve her for quite some time, and then extending on through our friendship until she passed. And I do have to tell you that one day I was with another client and saw her in the beauty shop, and the beauty shop to Lotus meant so much. And Chris, who used to take her to that, and Paul Hollander, I wish they were here today so I could thank them, but they did that for many years. Claire drove over to Nevada. Her hair was so important to her. It just meant everything. And so they really gave her a wonderful gift by doing that. I could tell you a million stories about Lotus. I do want to say that I have never known a person or a client, or except with people within my family, my grandmother maybe, that would exemplify pure love, beauty, and joy like she did, clear through the end. When I walked into that beauty parlor that day, salon, excuse me, she turned around. She looked through the mirror and she went like this. Now this was a couple of days, 2-3 days before she passed. And she turned around and she lit up and she said, "Connie." And I just felt her love. And this is a beautiful picture of her smile. Her eyes just sparkled. And I carry that joy still with me every day, and I think about Lotus a lot. As her lady-in-waiting, we became very close, and we became true friends. And we went through a lot of things together, but we did a lot of laughing. She was just laughed about everything rather than to cry about everything, and enjoyed. I really miss her right now, because every morning when I came, she had her newspaper after breakfast. We would discuss politics. So right now, I really miss discussing that with her. So I wish she was here. One day we were out in the kitchen, and I tried to continue to have her involved and participate in the activities of daily living, and we were putting together a meal, and she just threw it aside and looked at me, and she said, "My mother raised me to be a scientist, not a housewife." And then we just looked at each other and laughed and just let it fly. I could tell you 1,000,000 stories, and some of them I probably better not. But she was a real influencer, a real joy to me. I just feel her joy every day. I do keep a picture of her still on my refrigerator. And I love the family and grew to know the family and appreciate you so much. I wish Paul was here today. So, as a matter of fact, he is. Where is he? Well, I didn't recognize you back there. So I just want to thank you. Just everything you did for her. She loved you so much. And family, she loved you. And those grandchildren, she just worshiped her grandchildren. She's so proud of them. Your envelopes would come, and she would proudly take it out. The first thing she would look at were your grades and how you were doing. And she looked forward for months to going to California, to being with you, and for you to come here in the summer and spend time with her. She loved every minute. When Dorothy was going to be born, she was so excited. And then Dorothy came into the world, and it was like Lotus. She's just so full of life and joy and curiosity. So I carry Lotus with me each day, and I think of her with great joy. But as I said, she truly was pure, a humble person, so full of love. When she left the room, I swear, the love was still lingering. I feel her spirit every day. So I'm sorry for the loss, but I'm so glad to be here to celebrate. I want to thank Lynn, who introduced me to Lotus and Wilmer in the beginning and connected us, because I cherish that connection very, very much. And Lotus and I became the best of friends. So thank you. She would always say, "Come again." Every day I left, "Come again."
Thank you all for sharing. The music that called us here today was chosen by Doug, Fanfare for the Common Man. They chose it because Lotus particularly enjoyed it as the signal to take seats for the beginning of the Sunday morning service before the bell ringing became our custom. And after we close the service, they are asking you to participate in another aspect of a UU Sunday morning services that Lotus especially valued, the coffee hour. So we will have a chance to have a cuppa, to visit, to share more memories of Lotus, and just to visit among ourselves. I would like you to look at the left side of your program and look while I read the reading that the boys chose. Go your ways, knowing not the answers to all things, yet seeking always the answer to one more thing than you know. And with that, I will extinguish the chalice and read our very last Mary Oliver poem. The second one, I'm sure you have discovered, is on the inside of your program. White owl flies into and out of the field. Coming down out of the freezing sky with its depths of light, like an angel or a Buddha with wings, it was beautiful and accurate, striking the snow and whatever was there with a force that left the imprint of the tips of its wings 5 feet apart, and the grabbing thrust of its feet. and the indentation of what had been running through the white valleys of the snow. And then it rose gracefully and flew back to the frozen marshes to lurk there, like a little lighthouse in the blue shadows. So I thought, maybe death isn't darkness after all, but so much light wrapping itself around us as soft as feathers that we are instantly weary of looking and shut our eyes, not without amazement, and let ourselves be carried as through the translucence of mica to the river that is without the least dapple or shadow, that is nothing but light, scalding aortal light, in which we are washed and washed out of our bones. Gentle people, go in peace.